Okay. I know this video is probably not what you were expecting. You know, the premise is maybe a little bit out there and all that stuff, but if it's any consolation, whatever, I didn't expect to be making this video today. And yet, we're here, we're doing this, right? I made my bed, I brought the damn brick out, I put the coaster underneath him so he doesn't scratch up my mouse pad anymore, I put the hat on his head. There's no going back. Point of no return. We're doing this video, right? Now, this will be YASOPP versus Gene Freaks. Not in a battle to the death, of course. If you want to have that conversation, you're happy to have it in the comments below. You know, just off the cuff, though, I'm feeling Gene kind of stomps just because of the Nen power system compared to, like, the power systems in One Piece, like hockey and stuff. Maybe it'll be a closer fight than I think, but, you know, I think Nen plus, you know, Gene's intelligence, I think it kind of outshines YASOPP. But, hey, you want to have that discussion, go ahead and have it. No, today's battle will not be through fisticuffs or Nen cuffs or rifle cuffs. No, this battle will be who is the worst father? Because both of these characters are really, really bad at being a dad, okay? So this is one of those very rare One Piece Hunter x Hunter crossover videos. Don't see those very often, right? I don't even know if I have the right wall scroll up back here. Actually, you know what? Give me a click. I'll be right back. Okay, good. There you go. My first idea was to slice one of the wall scrolls in half and then the other one and then sew them together, but, you know, these things are kind of expensive, and also that's just a lot of extra sewing I didn't want to have to do, okay? But anyway, yes, Hunter x Hunter spoilers, I guess I should give you a little bit of a warning there. Okay, so, look, this was just going to be a YASOPP video. I was just like, what video am I going to do today? Video on YASOPP? Yeah, that should be a good one. And I don't script these or anything, in case you didn't know that. So I'm just going through my head of like a basic outline of the video. Like sometimes I'll write stuff down, like timeline stuff, just to keep everything straight. But, you know, I'll just go through in my head, like, okay, what am I going to talk about the character? You know, what angles am I going to take it? And I got to this point when I'm thinking of the YASOPP video where I'm like, okay, he is a pretty bad dad. You know, his wife dies and he never goes back to this village. He just abandons Usopp and his wife, and then Usopp is just raised by the whole village while he's out being a pirate. You know, he's just like, alright, I'm gonna leave my wife and son and just go be a pirate and pillage the world. Yes, so YASOPP's not the greatest dad in the world, right? So that got me thinking of another famous or infamous father in anime lore, and that is, of course, Gene Freaks, Gon's father from Hunter x Hunter. So I was gonna do this whole thing where I was gonna have like this big comparison, like a mini battle between YASOPP and Gene in the video, and that just kept getting more and more prominent in my head, and I'm just like, you know what? Screw it. Let's just make the whole video about that premise. Alright? Who is the worst father? Let's break this down, okay? Alright, so, we'll start with YASOPP. We'll go through everything we really know about YASOPP and the timeline, and Usopp and Bankina, who is his wife. I used to say it's Banchina, the way it's spelled, but it's Bankina, was Usopp's mother and YASOPP's wife, okay? And then after YASOPP, we'll go through Gene in the same way, and then I guess we'll have to make the determination. You know, I'll make my determination, you can make your determination on who is the worst father, okay? Alright, so, YASOPP, the first time we know anything about YASOPP other than when he was born, you know, because we have a date for that. It was like 40-something years ago, but that's not really important right now. The first time we get anything from YASOPP was 22 years before the current storyline, okay? So this is factoring in the time skip, okay? So 22 years ago, Shanks meets YASOPP at Syrup Village, okay? Shanks arrives in his little dinghy, and he's like, hey, I hear there's this really cool sniper, you know, firearms specialist on this island named YASOPP. You want to join my crew? And all we get from that, it's in the Strong World Chapter 0, you know, bonus thing whenever the Strong World movie came out, but it was still drawn by Oda, so it's still canon and everything, and YASOPP is just kind of hanging out on the bluffs of Syrup Village, much like Usopp did later with Luffy, and YASOPP's just kind of there looking out to see Shanks, and Shank offers him, hey, join my crew, and YASOPP's just like, huh? And that's all we get. That's all we get, alright? So, you could just say YASOPP joined Shanks' crew right at that moment. He was the first member. Maybe, maybe not, because here's the thing. Usopp was not born until 3 years later. So you could look at this a number of ways. You could say YASOPP did join, you know, Shanks' crew at that point. They sailed around the east a little bit, and then maybe he met Bankina somewhere, or he went back to his hometown and met Bankina there while they were like stopping over to like for resting a little bit. You know, like they traveled around for maybe a year, and then they stopped back at Syrup Village, and he met Bankina, and then they got married, because they did get married. That's definitely a thing. Bankina does say, I married your father, Usopp, you know, so it wasn't just like they were like a couple, they were like an old flame or like a night of passion. No, it was like they were married, okay? So I'm not really sure how the timeline of all that shakes down, you know, what YASOPP was doing in his downtime, or if he was just bouncing back and forth, like he gets married to Bankina and then meets Shanks, and then they travel around a little bit. YASOPP comes back, stays at the village for a few weeks, goes back out with Shanks, they stop over, and it's just like that could have been a system. He could have already been married to Bankina before he even met Shanks, right? And just like, hey there, Bankina, I gotta go out to sea. I gotta be a pirate. I'll see you in like, 6 months. Then he comes back in 6 months. Then he leaves again. I'll see you in a year. Then he comes back again. That could have been a situation until at some point, Bankina gets pregnant, and then Usopp is born 19 years before the current storyline, okay? 3 years after he meets Shanks, okay? We do not know how the childhood of Usopp really went there, how long YASOPP was around. I like to think YASOPP was around for a little bit when Usopp was younger. It might have also been just like a revolving door kind of parent thing, where, YASOPP comes back to the island for a little bit for like, just to rest, and then stuff happens, and then Bankina gets pregnant, and then YASOPP leaves, and then he comes back, and Bankina's like, here's your son, and YASOPP's like, whoa, I have a son, awesome! Okay, well that's cool. I'll stick around for like 2 weeks, then I'm back out to sea. It might have been something like that, because Shanks and the Red Hair crew were kind of hanging out in the east for a little while. But eventually, the Red Hair crew were going to go to the Grand Line. They were going to start their epic adventure, right? So I really think that's how it went. Usopp probably didn't get to see his dad very often for any like long stretch of time. It was probably like, hey, dad's back, and maybe get a few weeks, maybe a few months tops before he leaves again to go out with Shanks, okay? And that was probably his lifestyle for a little while, until Shanks finally decided to just, okay, we're doing the big adventure now. We're going out to the Grand Line. We're gonna have this big thing. And that's when YASOPP basically has to be like, okay, Bankina, Usopp, well, duty calls, you know how it is, being a pirate and whatnot. And of course, Usopp was inspired by his father, so I think like Usopp had to know his dad a little bit growing up to really get that instilled in him. I mean, I guess you could always say Usopp never really knew YASOPP, but it was his mother passing on the stories that got him inspired to be a pirate. But I don't think that was the case. I think when Usopp was really young, he at least knew his dad a little bit, so he knows what he looks like, or at least what he looked like back then, and, maybe that's the thing that got him interested in like picking up the slingshot. Maybe when Usopp was like 4 years old, YASOPP taught, Usopp how to fire a slingshot and how great it is being a pirate. Like, oh yeah, he's like, hey dad, are you gonna be leaving again for 3 years? Yeah, son, you know how it is being a pirate, sailing the 7 seas. They're the ones with the most freedom in this world, son. Keep an eye on your mother and practice your slingshot technique, and I'll be back, whenever. It could have been something like that, right? And so at some point, though, YASOPP is just gonzo. He just leaves, and he doesn't come back, alright? Now, Bankina dies. She gets some kind of unknown illness, no doctors on the island can cure it, and she ends up dying. We do not know when this happened. I looked on the timeline. We don't know how old Usopp was. We don't know how old Bankina was. We don't know how long ago this was. We just get these brief scenes here where Usopp is next to his mother, and this is like purportedly like right before she died, okay? Now, the only thing I have to go on here is just looking at the way Usopp is drawn by Oda and seeing, like, okay, like, approximately how old Usopp would be in this image. I think he looks a lot like the other kids in Syrup Village, like when Luffy showed up, like Carrot and Onion and all the other. They have different names in Japanese, but I just remember, like, their 4 kids, like, their English names. Like, hey, it's Onion! Usopp looks about, like, that old in this flashback, so I'm gonna say, like, roughly 9 years old, 8, 9, 10 years old, something like that, okay? That's when Bankina died, alright? Which would be roughly, maybe 10 years before the current storyline. Usopp is 19 years old right now. Maybe like 10 or so years ago, Bankina died. And at this point, it was established YASOPP had not been here for a while. Like, YASOPP had left, and this is when Usopp started with the whole, like, there's pirates! Mom, there's pirates! That means Dad's back, and he's gonna take us away on the boat, and we're gonna have a family adventure! He's back! And Bankina literally looks at Usopp and just straight up tells him, like, Usopp, don't say anything so stupid. Your father is never coming back. Like, she's straight up she's on her deathbed. She can't even bring herself to give her son, like, false hope or anything. Like, that's how much she is confident that YASOPP is never coming back to this island. You know, she is just like, you know, I'm dying. I got to at least give my son a little bit of hope that maybe his dad would come back someday. Like, don't worry, Usopp. Someday your dad will return. I'm sure of it. No, she's just straight up, your dad's never coming back to this island. He's gone. But I am glad I married him. I don't regret that I married your father. I don't regret that, you know, we had you. You know, you are the light of my life, all that stuff, you know. Listen to the villagers when I'm gone. Because once again, your father is not coming back, so the village is going to have to raise you. You're gonna be an orphan, essentially. I mean, yeah, your dad is technically alive, but for all intents and purposes, throughout your upbringing, yeah, you're gonna be an orphan. So sorry to tell you that, but that's what's happening. And then she's like, yeah, I'm happy I married your father, happy we had you, but he ain't coming back. So bye. And then she dies. So that's really sad, you know, from Usopp's perspective. Like, that's the whole reason he started the whole pirates are coming, because he wanted his dad to come back. So at that age right here, Usopp, age like 8, 9, 10 years old, YASOPP had already been out of their lives for probably several years. You know, he maybe Usopp knew a little bit about him when he was, really young, but at a certain point, maybe like 4 or 5 years old, YASOPP left and he never came back, right? There's also a scene here in one of the One Piece openings where we see YASOPP with Bankina together at Syrup Village, which that's a nice little, I think that's the only shot in this series that's not, fan art or anything, that we see Bankina and YASOPP together. Although it's not really canon because Kaya is behind them and Kaya looks like she does now, even though this would have had to have been at least, like 19-something years ago. Maybe it was Kaya's mother that's back there and just dressed a lot like Kaya. I don't know, but that's a nice little scene there from one of the openings to see YASOPP and his wife together in one shot. Not something we get to see pretty much at all otherwise, right? So, YASOPP left to be a pirate. That was his intent. The open sea adventure was calling to him. So much so that he just abandoned his wife and child and just left. Even after Bankina died, YASOPP never returned to the village, not even a single time. Does YASOPP even know his wife is dead? I would assume he does, but he very well might not know, So Usopp went through, growing up, founding the Usopp Pirates and being a trouble for the village and everything like that. And then at age 17, Luffy arrives and then he joins the Straw Hats and then he goes out to sea. Of course, Usopp didn't really have as many connections. He wasn't married with a kid when Usopp left. So he's like, all right, bye, Veggie Pirates. That's great. Usopp Pirates disbanded. See ya. Going out to sea. It's like, it's a sad moment, but not nearly as bad, right? All right. And where's YASOPP at right now? Well, he's doing important stuff. He's a member of a Yonko's crew. We saw him at Marineford going up against the Marines, looking pretty badass and everything. He's the sniper. He's got a pretty cool rifle. Ben Beckman also has a pretty cool rifle. So the Red Hair crew actually has a lot of riflemen. That's pretty neat. But yeah, I'm sure YASOPP knows about Usopp. I mean, maybe not from the Sage King. The Sage King thing might have thrown him for a loop, but eventually after the time skip when the new bounty posters come out and, freaking YASOPP looks at the poster, he's like, hey, Shanks, check it out! That's Usopp! God Usopp! Sweet! My son's a god! That makes me the father of a god! Yeah, I'm Zeus! Or maybe a Titan! Titan YASOPP! And Shanks is just like, yeah, that's great. We want to go see him to congratulate him? Yeah, nah. Yeah, we're already doing other stuff, you know what I mean? So I'm sure YASOPP is keeping tabs on Usopp the same way that Shanks is keeping tabs on Luffy and keeping up to date with everything he's doing. But YASOPP really doesn't seem to have any overt desire to, meet Usopp very quickly. We gotta go see my son. He doesn't really seem to be interested in that. He doesn't seem interested to, go back to Syrup Village and, visit his wife's grave. I mean, hey, give Von Hohenheim some credit. He was alive for 500 years. Well, I guess he wasn't married for 500 years, but he still stopped by Resembool to, pay respect to Trish every once in a while, right? Every once in a blue moon, he'd pop back up again. Oh, man. So, yeah, that's the situation with YASOPP, right? Now, What are Yasopp's views toward Usopp? Like I already said, I think he's really proud of his son. Probably in the same way Shanks wants to meet Luffy again when they become a true pirate. Yasopp probably has the same kind of idea there. Like when Usopp finally reaches like Laugh Tale, like we'll be there. We'll meet them at some point when they become a true pirate crew or a true Yonko crew or one of the emperors. We'll eventually meet them again, and I'm sure Yasopp will have like a nice little moment with his son. But yeah, I don't see Yasopp in any way wanting. He's like, well, son, now that we're finally together again, I could see us, I'm gonna stay in touch with you. Yeah, I don't see that happening. I see Usopp meeting his dad. They sit down, maybe have a little heart-to-heart. They talk about Usopp talks about his mom, Bankina, Yasopp's wife, and they have a little bit of heart-to-heart there. Maybe they drink some booze and is like, oh, I remember that time. Remember that time that happened? Oh, remember that time? Maybe a little bit like that. But Yasopp is not really interested in, sticking around, probably. It's like, okay, well, I'll run into you when I run into you, son, and that's pretty much gonna be it, right? So that's Yasopp, all right? So now moving on to Hunter x Hunter, moving on to Gene, all right? Oh, boy. Okay. Yeah. At least with Yasopp, you can kind of say that maybe at the very beginning, he maybe had a little bit of interest in being a father, but he had this other thing going on, and he was just, like, kind of split between, I don't know, should I be a father or should I be a pirate, Gene really didn't have that. Gene pretty much from day one is like, I'm a hunter, I don't have time to raise a kid. Now, we don't know anything about Gon's mother, and probably we'll never find out anything about Gon's mother, because Gon in the story, he says to Killua, he's like, you know what, I'm not really interested in my biological mother, because my mother is my Aunt Mito, she's the one that raised me and everything, so, and for all intents and purposes, that's my mom, I don't really care who it really is, right? So we're probably never gonna find out about Gon's mother, and with the situation with Togashi and Hunter x Hunter anyway, yeah, don't hold your breath for that, okay? But at some point, Gene meets somebody, probably most definitely just like a one night of passion kind of thing in that regard. I don't think he got married or anything like that. He's Gene after all. And we know that Gon was in Gene's care and brought Gon into Greed Island, so they were together very briefly when Gon was a baby, maybe only a few weeks, few months old, if that. Right, and so Gene brings him into Greed Island, kind of really just, hey, Gon, check it out. This is this video game world I created. I mean, it's not really a video game, but you'll find that out later when you're older. All right, well, you'll be Gon, and I'll be gone. All right, and like the next thing he does, apparently after that, is like, all right, well, I showed him Greed Island. All right, he just stops by Whale Island, his hometown, goes up to his sister's house, knocks on the door. Gene, you're back! Oh my God, and you have a baby. Whose baby is this? You know what? Just I can't be a dad. Here you go, take the baby. I'm like, okay, right. Oh, by the way, give him this this box when he gets old enough, or not. I really don't care. All right, later, out, and then just shuts the door and leaves. I mean, how else would that have went down? I really don't think that Gene would have, had a heart-to-heart with Mito and all right, Mito, I gotta tell you the whole story of how Gon, who's his mother and the circumstances behind his birth and everything that I was like, no, Gene was like, hey, Mito, take care of this kid, I'm out here doing hunter stuff, I can't take care of this kid, right? Just, make sure he doesn't die, or, well, I don't even know if Gene was like that over, he's like, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. It'll be cool. Give him the box. Later. Bye. And so that's it. And no contact whatsoever. Zero contact pretty much his entire life. Now, granted, Usopp was 17 years old when he left Syrup Village and might have known his father when he was really young. In Gon's case, he was literally just like a baby when Gene left him, okay? But also, Gon, I think when the series starts, is like 11 or 12 years old, and then at the end of Hunter x Hunter, the anime anyway, it's still going on in the manga, but at the end of the anime, he does eventually meet his dad, okay? So, in terms of just like how long they had to wait to see their dad again, Usopp is going to have to wait longer to see Yasopp, just because he's just older, but Gon did get to see his dad again after about 11 or 12 years or so. So that's something, right? Like, okay, I guess you're just going purely by, length of time. I guess Yasopp is the worst father just in that regard, but there's other factors here, okay? So, yeah. Did Gene care about Gon? Did Gene, keep tabs on Gon to keep track of what he was doing? Not really. we really didn't get that kind of impression from him. Certainly not all the time that Gon was spending on Whale Island. It didn't seem like Gon stopped by at any given time to, like, you know, make sure they had enough money or make sure they had, like, the living conditions were good, or, like, Gon was being raised okay, like he's not dead or something. Gene never showed back up at Whale Island again. So he really just didn't care in that regard. Later on, during the after the Chimera Ant arc, during the election arc, there's that moment where Pariston asks Gene, like, "Hey Gene, I hear that your son is in some really rough shape right now," and Gene is like, "Yep, sounds like it." Now that could have been Gene just messing with Pariston, but you really get the impression there, like, Gene really didn't pay attention to what was happening with his son. Like, he was not keeping tabs on what was going on in his life. You know, Gene was off doing his own thing, and he's like, maybe every once in a while somebody would come up to him and be like, "Hey Gene, did you hear about your son Gon? He won Greed Island." And Gene's like, "Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I knew he could do it. Whatever." You know, he doesn't hate Gon, but he just really has no interest in him. You know, it's like, oh yeah, he fought against these Chimera Ants, these dangerous B+ level creatures from the Dark Continent, and he's in a severe coma after exerting his nen beyond human understanding, and he's probably going to die. He's currently in a state honestly worse than death. He'll be fine. You know, now you could say that from, like, the perspective of, like, oh, he's his father. Gene has confidence that Gon will survive. He believes in his son. You could look at it like that. Like, no matter how bad he gets beaten up, I know he'll survive because he's my son. You could look at it like that, but another way of looking at it is like, yeah, he'll be alright. I don't really care. He'll probably be okay. You know? Because he doesn't even go to see him, which is kind of a, you know what I mean? Like, oh, your son is currently in a state of severe, like, he's about, like, this close to dying, and, like, yeah, I'm not really gonna see him. You could go see him, Pariston, if you want. I'm sure he'd love that. You know, once again, might have just been Gene being sarcastic, but yeah. So, yeah, and then later on, we also get to see when Gon finally does reunite with Gene. Gene is, like, really flustered, like, he doesn't even really know how to talk to Gon, and he does end up giving Gon, like, some kind of a good piece of advice with Kite and everything, but you just really could tell that he was, like, in no interest of being a father to Gon. And that advice he was giving him was not, like, fatherly advice. It was like, you know, oh, when you make a promise with somebody, this is how you have to do it. Or when you apologize to somebody, this is how you do it. That's just him, you know, imparting some wisdom onto Gon. But it's like, you get the impression he's doing that, like, the same way he would give that advice to anybody. Not necessarily Gon is special because he's his son or anything like that, right? I don't know. And, you know, so the way that they meet finally is like, he's like, "Dude, Gon, I'll be at the top of the world tree. Don't keep me waiting." And Gon goes up there and he's like, "Hey, Gene." He's like, "I got tired of waiting." And so they have the nice moment where they sit down and they talk. And they have, like, they talk throughout the night on top of the tree with the birds back there and everything like that. And Gon is telling Gene about his adventures, and Gene's telling him a little bit about his life, although he's being secretive. And then Gene finally tells him about the Lost Continent, the Dark Continent, and everything like that. And that's cool. But then they just kind of separate. They kind of go their separate ways. Gon kind of keeps in contact with Gene. He calls him at one point to ask him about his nen. And, you know, Gene answers the phone. He's like, "All right, I guess I'll give you my phone number." I guess, you know, son, you can have my phone number, right? But yeah, once again, it's even worse when it comes for Gon and Gene, because with Usopp is already 19 years old. So when Usopp and YASOPP finally meet again, it's like, all right, you know, you're already kind of an adult, Usopp. You know, you can make your own decisions now. You know, you're not a child anymore, basically. And Gon has done a lot of crazy stuff in Hunter x Hunter as well. He's really strong and everything, but at the same time, he's still, like, 12 years old in the story. Like, he's like a kid still. So you think, like, having a dad around would be nice, you know, for him to have a dad. But yeah, Gene is not interested in that at all. Especially since now that Gon he can't access his aura. His nen he can't use his nen anymore. So he's just living on Whale Island. He's not really even in the story right now. You know, he's not going on any kind of wacky, crazy adventures. He doesn't have the capabilities of doing that. You think Gene is gonna be like, all right, I'm gonna stop whatever I'm doing, going to the Dark Continent, and I'm gonna go live on Whale Island and, you know, raise my my son now. He has no interest in that. And it's not even like he doesn't feel guilt about it or anything. He's just, same thing with YASOPP. YASOPP doesn't really seem to have a lot of guilt over it. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. We might always find out with YASOPP, you know, there might always be something added later on in the story where it's like, oh, well, I did leave your mother, but it was because of this reason, or there was a good reason for it or something, or I hope to go out to sea to get enough money so we could live happily ever after our adventure was over, but, you know, the adventure just kept going, and then I heard your mother died, and I was like, ugh. So I couldn't really face you, son. Like, they might always do that with YASOPP, but I don't think GING has that. I think he's just really flustered and like, oh, I don't know how to be a father, and now my son's in front of me crying his eyes out. I don't know what to do with this, right? So it's just like he feels awkward, but I don't think he feels like genuine guilt, if that makes sense, right? So at the end of the day here, I think even though YASOPP has been out of Usopp's life longer, you know, but because Gon is younger and everything, the way that GING acts, I'm gonna go with GING being the worst dad in this one particular instance, okay? Maybe you arrived at a different conclusion, let me know. But yeah, I think I'm gonna settle on GING there, because GING is like, yeah, my son, he's, you know, we met, we talked, we're probably good for a while, right? I got this other thing to do. I gotta go find Dawn Freaks. I gotta go to the Dark Continent. This is more important than raising a son. Also, I love their, like, both Gon and Usopp's, like, coping mechanisms for this, don't you? Their coping mechanism, Gon's is like, well, if my dad left to be a hunter, that means being a hunter must be awesome. I want to be one too. And Usopp's is like, well, my dad left to go be a pirate, so that means being a pirate is awesome. I want to be one too. So I'm proud of my dad for leaving me and my sick mother. Oh my god, right? So yeah, that's a little bit of an interesting coping mechanism there. Also, after Gon does meet GING, later on in the manga, Gon does say, like, well, I'm glad I found him, I'm glad I got to talk to him and know who he is, but I didn't really feel any connection in terms of, like a fatherly bond or something like that. I didn't feel like, oh, I finally met my dad, now we could be a family. Like Gon even mentions, I never even really felt anything like that. It was more of just, like, I was looking for GING my whole life, and I finally found him, and I talked to him, and I'm like, okay, cool. He gave me his phone number. And then, you know, we can talk whenever, I guess, is whenever he feels like talking. But other than that, Gon doesn't really, you know, have a desire for GING to, like, stick around in his life for a long period of time. Because, once again, GING is a pretty shitty dad. So anyway, that's the video, I guess. A little bit out there, but that's the video. Thanks for watching. Also, today, I'm hoping I could get this video edited and uploaded. I gotta get moving on this. But today, over on Roger's channel, Roger's Base, we're doing the little tournament for the best manga of 2020 for the entire year. So I'll leave a link in the description for that, if I can get it out. That's starting at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, which is about, like, 2 hours, 20 minutes from right now, so I gotta get moving on that. So, yeah, check it out over there. I'll send out a tweet, of course, when it gets started. Yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Tekking, Barry, signing out. How come you never sign out, Barry? Sign out, Barry. There we go. There we go.